Welcome to another edition of Cal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff. I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is the one and only Rob McConnell. Folks, as I say at the beginning of every show, again because it's true, we try to cover everything from politics to the paranormal on Cal's Corner here. Once again, we don't get to all of the subjects in one show, but maybe over a period of God knows how many years, we will have covered God knows how many subjects. All right, let's start off with politics because a lot of people are talking about politics, at least in the United States. And let's talk about President Trump and, of course, former FBI director and special prosecutor Robert Mueller. Now, I didn't see all the hours of the Mueller testimony. I didn't have to. I did see enough of it, though, to come away with two fairly firm conclusions, and I'm not the only one who feels this way. Based on my limited discussions with fellow Americans, it seems like most of them agree with the following view. The whole thing was a debacle. Should never have happened. What a joke. The Democrats keep doing everything in their power. They have special skills. They've proven it in their track record. Just ask Hillary Clinton, of doing everything they can do to give Trump another 4 years in office. If they keep doing this, they might as well just not bother running. It's really ridiculous. First of all, Mueller said very clearly before he opened his mouth to testify, and let's be honest, he was very frail, didn't seem to be all there. Don't know if that's a new permanent condition with him. He is not a spring chicken anymore. All of us will die of age someday. Hopefully we live long, but a lot of people don't. Anyway, regardless of what his health is, he said very clearly, I'm not going to say anything that's beyond the report. So my question is, why would they even bother having a hearing? Why would he even agree to do this? Because all they had to do was hire a stand-in, someone who could at least not keep saying, can you repeat the question, and just read the damn report, and then they'd learn the same thing they learned without embarrassing themselves, which was absolutely nothing new. So, again, I don't even know where to begin how stupid this whole thing was. I'm going to bring anybody listening to this show back to the principal point here, which I think is the only thing that matters. Why have a hearing bringing the star head honcho of that report in before the cameras and the American people on taxpayer money, of course, and go ahead and ask him to talk about a report where he said, all I'm going to talk about is what's in my report. They've had this report for months. They could read it themselves. For all I know, there may be even an audiobook version somebody's done. I don't know. The point is, it was just a joke. And then now you have Nadler saying impeachment is in effect, and he's demanding the grand jury secrets. Again, the American people, if you ask them, and there are countless polls out there that prove this, the newest one says very clearly that the overwhelming, most important issue in the minds of the American people, most Americans, these are ones who are going to vote, Democrats, should you be listening to this and use your brains, they care about illegal immigration. They care about the economy. More important than the economy, they care about universal health care. How about affordable health care? Who cares if it's universal? How about any decent, affordable health care? We're getting to the point where we don't care where it comes from, as long as it's decent and affordable. Who it comes from is the detail at that point. That's what Americans care about, and that's how they're going to vote based on their wallet. Now, I'm the first to admit that I don't think this so-called economic miracle is going to last because it was never a miracle. I remind everybody that there's really no evidence that miracles exist, period. There is, however, cause and effect. So I don't think it's a miracle when someone suddenly survives something. I think it's great, but there's usually a very normal, logical, you can figure it out explanation as to why some of those things that are called miracles happen. And we must remember that historically the human race has used miracles and religion to explain things or try to explain things it just didn't know or didn't care to try to understand. It still does that, just as the UFO field or the paranormal. God, it's a religion to some of these people. It's ridiculous. Even though they don't like religion, they say that. But even they exhibit all the signs and symptoms of someone who is a religious extremist. It happens to be reticulans instead of Jesus Christ. Same shtick, different subject. All right, so here's Nadler, the Democrat, saying we're going to impeach, even though most Americans, and Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the Democrats, has said we don't want to impeach the guy. But Nancy can't keep her troops in line because trying to get Democrats to agree on something other than the fact they hate Trump is like trying to herd a bunch of cats. It just doesn't work very gracefully. And that's why I call them the Keystone Cops of the two political parties, because they are that. They are as stupid and as weak as they've basically been since the time of the Civil War. That's the time when they were against freeing the slaves and, of course, went on to help found and start the Ku Klux Klan. Of course, they don't want to talk about that today because they have flipped history into perverting it and making you falsely believe that the Republicans were pro-slave and, of course, started the KKK. And only Republicans are racist. No one else is. Again, this extremism, this polarization, it has gotten out of control to the point where record numbers of people are just tuning out. They just don't want anything to do with Facebook or anything like that. And I find that rather interesting because the other day I had a conversation with a very good friend of mine, love the guy to death, and he was telling me that he wasn't sure the internet was a good thing. And I told him I disagree with that. I disagree with it because I think the internet is a wonderful thing. Now, I admit I have a bit of a passion for hypermedia. I was, after all, on Apple's and Claris's HyperCard development team. The HyperCard team invented the hyperlink. Apple holds the patent for it. They could charge you folks every time you click on something and it takes you to something else, but they don't. They're not, say Microsoft or company oriented that way. But I love hypermedia. Always have. I think it's neat that you can be looking at something, reading it, for example, and then let's say you see a word in a sentence that you don't quite understand it, or you're rather curious about that. You can click on it and then drill down as far as you want to go. Life is one big relational database. I really believe that. How you succeed in life, in my limited view, and based on my short experience, is that you try to exploit in a positive way, doing the right things, hopefully, of the fact that everything is ultimately related to everything else. I have especially learned this in my travels, having been to and or lived in 27 different countries around the world, very different cultures, on 4 different continents. And I can tell you that I've run into mutual acquaintances in some of the most remote places on this planet where the odds of this happening were almost impossible, but they did. I remember this was the last trip I was in Europe secretly in December. I went there. I was with my mother. I was trying to take her to a place that I used to go hang out and do a lot of my skullduggery stuff, for lack of a better term, investigations, undercover work, would type up my reports on my laptop and so on. And I would hang out in various Czech pubs and things like that, places where I would socialize, and also places I could go where they kind of knew what I did or didn't know, but nobody would ask a lot of questions. I could do what I wanted, and nobody would bug me. So I'd hang out at some of these places. So I was taking my mom around to show her some of these. And it turns out that in one of these places, it was under new ownership. The owner had died. He was killed in a car crash. Very sad to hear it. He's a friend of mine. I didn't know he had passed away. And we're not able to get in there. And so what happened is we turned around to walk away. And as soon as we turned the corner, I run into an old friend that I had not seen in 7 years. At that moment, at that slice in time, with my mother as a witness. What are the odds of that happening? If I had just gone in any other time at that split second and had not had the exact things happen the way they did, this includes just missing the metro car, having to wait 3 more minutes before another car came, walking up those extra steps, taking this flight of stairs instead of that one, I would have never seen my friend. We'd have never gone into the pub together because she knew the new owner. We talked, caught up on old times, said goodbye because this person was also leaving the place where she had lived for many, many years. And again, I have to thank the universe or God or whatever, I say Yahweh because I'm Jewish, for this type of thing happening. Because the odds of it happening, if I tried to do it again, placing a bet in Las Vegas, it wouldn't happen. So I have no explanation as to why these things happen. Are they proof that they're miracles, that God did it? Well, based on our rules of science, we can't say that. Why it may be true, we can't prove it. And that's the thing to remember. There's nothing wrong with admitting the fact that you don't know. You may never know. Or, I don't know. How many times have you been around with somebody where they don't know, but you're like, come on, and they feel some sort of pressure, or they think they do, and then they pull something out of their you know what, make it up, give it to you, and then expect you to believe it. I know people who do that, and it's frustrating, and I try not to deal with them as much as possible because I might as well be asking a wall. At least the wall's not going to lie to me. It may not say anything, but saying nothing is not automatically a lie either. So again, there is only, in my view, cause and effect. And this is why I have a problem with people who talk about the paranormal as if there's some reality out there beyond the reality we live in. No, I think the universe is pretty much one thing. There's a lot of stuff in there, infinite amounts, okay? And we'll never understand or see or know it all. We're not capable of that, even if we wanted to. And that's okay, because other than God, I assume, and even then it's an assumption, only God would be able to know it all and do it all and be it all, and that's the whole point and concept of God. No other gods are needed, right? Depends on your definition, I guess. Anyway, we'll come back to politics after this commercial break here. And what I want to talk about real quickly after the break is where the election so far seems to be heading. I understand that we've got a long way to go, but no sign that it's heading in the right direction. We'll be back after this break.